Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sound Waves, powered by Sound Cove Labs. I'm Rob Petrosh, the founder of Sound Cove Labs here in Greenwich, Connecticut. We have a great show for you today, and we're ready to get to it. Today, we're talking with the leadership team at TACT, and Matt Lovasz is joining us. Matt, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Matt, where are you in the world?
St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, Missouri. Well, welcome to the show, and it's great to have you. Let's talk a little bit about TACT. Tell us exactly what you guys do and what you're about.
TACT, it stands for Trauma and Casualty Team. You can see it's an acronym. We primarily do biohazard cleaning, crime scene cleanup. A lot of it's undiscovered deaths, suicides. We also do a lot of hoarding cleanup. Like if people have seen that show Hoarders, it's just like that. A lot of other, hazardous type work like mold, rodent droppings, drug lab cleanups, things like that.
It's definitely a unique niche. How did you see a gap in the market here, and why did you get involved in this area?
Well, before getting into this, I was a police officer in St. Louis, and my wife and I had our first kid, and she was about 1 year old, and I was thinking of getting out of police work, just because the hours and work was crazy, and I, realized how expensive kids were, and I needed to make some more money. So I started looking around, and then I found out about this industry, and I realized, 10 years being a police officer, I never even heard of companies that did that. So I was thinking, obviously, they're not doing that great of a job getting the word out, because, I would think I would come across a company or two like that as a police officer. So I thought I should get into that industry and create some more competition.
Now, you cover some of the toughest jobs out there, as you said, trauma scenes and cleanup, a biohazard, things like that. How do you position that in a way that communicates trust, professionalism, and also like compassion for your prospective clients? I would assume that's pretty tough.
Yeah, we train our people a lot with that, and it's a big priority for all of our locations that we have. It's something that really just comes over time with your reputation. The people that refer us on jobs like this know how we're going to treat family after something like that. And the longer we're around, the more work we do. We just kind of have built a reputation that that's the type of company we are.
Given the sensitive nature of the work that you do, how do most clients find TACT? Are they coming via referrals, police, CMS, property managers, insurance? How do you handle that?
A lot of those that you mentioned, we refer us. When a location's pretty new and nobody knows us yet, it's all coming from Google. They're in this industry, Google ads are really expensive. Unfortunately, a brand new location has to spend a lot of money on Google ads to start getting some work at the beginning. But we develop a lot of relationships with a lot of those people you mentioned: police, property managers, funeral homes, counselors, like anybody who would be involved in any type in that situation, are the people that we develop relationships with. Not so much insurance, because this industry is a little bit different, where unlike water damage, where your house floods, you call your insurance company. A lot of people don't know that insurance even gets involved with stuff like this. So typically insurance finds out after we do the work. So we're not really getting too many referrals from insurance.
And you mentioned Google on the marketing front. Our audience and a lot of our founders love to hear what's working in this space. What marketing or lead gen channels are giving you the most consistent results? We know Google is expensive, but what else is working for you, and what's not working, I guess?
I mean, for the crime scene stuff, it's really just Google. But for some of the
actually,
other
just
things,
to understand that a little better, sorry, what are they searching for at that moment, I guess?
they can search crime scene cleanup, or Google changes the rules a lot. So they used to be able to search like suicide cleanup or something like that, but we can't use suicide anymore. Or death cleanup, blood cleanup, stuff like that. They'll search. But yeah, it's for some of the other things like hoarding and mold, especially, websites like Thumbtack or Angie's List, we've had a little luck with, but not too much. But most of it's Google and referrals from people that we've either done work for before or, know us from just marketing.
And what about it's a service like yours? Sometimes you don't know when you are going to need it. So almost being in front of people before they need it, especially decision makers, maybe on that police force, or what are you doing there to a little bit of the branding side of the business, if
Yeah.
you will?
A lot of it's just educating on what we do. It's so when we, we're marketing technically, but we're not. It's a little different because we're not trying to, sell them something, get them to make a decision right there.
Right, right.
It's kind of just educating them, letting them know that we're around and how we operate. And if they were to tell somebody, there's this company called TACT, how it would work after they called us, so they if the family has questions for them, they know some of the information they could give them before they decide to call us.
Yeah. And what about content marketing strategy? Even targeting people hoarding, or
Hmm.
maybe even targeting the children of parents who may be hoarders. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's an approach. That's just something I came up with. But
yeah.
yeah, like I'm just curious there.
There is an organization actually called Children of Hoarders. It's like a support group out there.
Okay.
Yeah, we've tried some of that. The people that do our I don't handle like the actual technical stuff when it comes to advertising online, but the people that do it for our websites, they're good at doing targeting for things like that, whether it's through social media or just online searches.
And walk us through how you're managing the client journey right now, from initial contact to scheduling the job. I assume everything needs to move very quickly, but
Hmm.
to the completion, to the follow up, pictures, invoice.
Yeah.
What are the critical touch points? And I guess from just an AI or technological standpoint, where a lot of our audience are cleaning company founders or people in home services, how are you managing all of that?
It just depends on the type of job it is and the type of client it is. So, I mean, if our typical, suicide at a home, it's like you said, really quick. It's they search someone and it's probably the first person that pops up. They click it and they call, "We need you here right now." We show up. We give them a brief explanation of what we're going to do inside the house. Tell them, that we're going. We usually don't collect any money from them or anything like that at that time. We just tell them, we have a contract. They sign a work order, and then they allow us to do the work, and we explain to them how the insurance process is going to work. If it's something where it's a property management company or a hoarding case or something that's not, technically an emergency. I mean, sometimes with property management, it is an emergency, but they still have to run it up the chain to get approval. It's a little bit different. Then there's more of a sales process there because we're, taking pictures, explaining to them what we can do or what we should be doing. And sometimes they agree to everything and sometimes they don't. Just explain to them, this is what our typical process is to make the place safe again. This is what the cost is going to be. And then we work with them from there.
Got it. Okay. And as we discussed, the jobs we're talking about right now are probably, to your point, the first search result that comes up. If it's you, you get the phone call. As you grow the company, are you looking at recurring business models or ongoing contracts for commercial or facilities or
Mhm.
preventative services? Are you looking for anything there that's a little more of a predictable revenue stream for the company?
Yeah, but there is some contracts out there that we can obtain. A lot of it's through the government, but a lot of it's not real predictable. Some of it's still like as needed. So we have some locations that have contracts for like hoarding encampment cleanups or police vehicles and jail cells, stuff like that. But it's still just whenever it comes up, they call us. During COVID, there was more predictable stuff. We had contracts a lot during then, where it's just certain facilities every Saturday when people aren't here, come here and decontaminate the whole place and things like that. But there isn't really any, besides. Well, we do have some contracts where for medical waste, that would be a predictable one. For like doctors' offices and veterinary clinics where you have a route and you drive around and pick up their sharps and things like that. That would probably be the only one that's consistently predictable.
Shifting gears a little bit to systems and automation and manual work, where do you still find you or the team doing manual times intensive tasks like data entry, paperwork, follow-ups, insurance submissions if you're dealing with that? How are you managing that? And um, is it a big burden, or do you have technology in place to make it a little easier?
We have some technology for that. We were actually in the process of working with somebody to have an app that's specific just for this industry to make everything in one app. But yeah, as far as invoicing and stuff like that goes, there is some software out there that we use that makes things a lot simpler where you can, take the photos, do the estimate, all of the forms that we have filled out, it can be all in one place. And as far as the bookkeeping and stuff goes, yeah, that's separate. Most locations have a system where they just do have their accountant work with their own system for that location.
If you could automate one internal process to free up time or reduce risk, what would it be?
For me or for the locations?
Either or both.
For me, it would just be something where, so every month, I have to get reports from every location about things. There's some way just to automatically get that turned over to me without tracking it down from people. That would be helpful. And I think for the locations, they would most likely say something like I was talking about with this app, where it's just everything they do can be in one spot. It's not having to share stuff with other locations and things like that.
And looking to the future, as we talked about market trends, from your vantage point, what major trends are you seeing in the biohazard cleanup industry with regulations and things like that? Yeah, what are you seeing as we look to 2026?
There's always been a couple states that have been pretty strict with everything, but since COVID, there's been more legislation that's gone through for this industry in certain states like Georgia. I think North Carolina is pretty close to passing some stuff, but it was kind of like the Wild West when I first got into this. Like anybody could do this. There's no federal license. There's still no federal license, but there's no local regulatory anything, just anyone could do it. Besides states like, California had a lot of regulations and stuff, but I think people are just getting more, or I would say governments are getting more strict on who can do this and how you do it and, what type of chemicals you have to use and how you dispose of things and stuff like that. So, like when Georgia passed their legislation, I know they had like 30 or 40 something companies that did this. And then after that, they were down to like 9, I think. So they're making people go through background checks and, make sure they have the proper insurance and stuff like that. So I think that they're just trying to tighten down more on that, make sure professional companies that are insured and trained and everything are the ones doing it.
How many states do you operate in?
We opened our first location in 2021, and we have 18 locations now, I believe, in 15 states. We're about to open 19 early next year.
And the model is franchised out?
Yes. Yep. All franchised out.
And what type of background do you see from when you think about your most successful locations and the background of the owner? And I'm sure it varies, especially in the franchising world, but what are some themes you see of successful people who franchise this and make it work? What are some of their qualities, if you will?
Yeah, I think about that a lot, and I haven't found one specific thing like this is the background that I can look at, and I know they'll do well if they have this background because our top producers are, in the car sales industry, and then another guy was in insurance, and you have someone who worked at a warehouse. Like we have all different types of backgrounds. It's really, I think, a personality type I'm kind of looking for, and I'm trying to get a better science on how to identify that personality type. But it's really just somebody who is good at talking with people, really self-motivated. They just they're pretty determined person, like they don't get discouraged easily. That seems to be the type of person that does the best at this.
And as you grow this company and find more franchisees on that side, which is a totally different side of marketing, but I'd love to hear from you. What are you doing on that front to introduce this brand to the market, especially to entrepreneurial people?
Yeah, besides doing interviews and stuff like this, there's some brokerage consultants and stuff like that I use. They put out advertisements and stuff for people looking at businesses. A lot of it's word of mouth. There's conventions to go to and things like that. But I'm also pretty picky about, at the beginning wasn't as picky, but getting more picky about who we select and everything. And I also spend a lot of time with the new franchises. So I'm also trying not to grow too quick where I can't spend the amount of time with each one of them because, we don't have any failures so far. So I want to, keep it that way. And, so it's really I would say 50% of the people find me on their own and 50% comes from brokers.
And you FDD, you're keeping it clean at this point,
Yeah.
which is great. Congrats.
Yeah. So far. Yeah. I know there'll be one in the future, but so far we're good.
And are your existing owners, are they having success in buying more territories? They started with 1 or 2 and now have 3 or 4. Obviously that's where you want it to go, right? You'd rather stick with a successful owner and let him grow. Yeah. Nothing wrong with new people, but.
Right. And that's why I tell all of them. I said I'd much rather have a smaller number of owners, owning a bunch of locations and making a lot more money. It'll make our annual meetings more fun, if everybody's happy and making a lot of money. But yeah, we have a few of them. I have one guy who says he wants to buy 14 locations. He's not number 3 right now, but we have a few people that are operating multiple locations, and a few people who want to operate multiple locations. So, and then we have some people that are just like, I'm good with one. I'm happy with just my one. So, just like I said, just depends on the personality type.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. As we wrap up here, I'd love for you to talk to some of the, it's interesting because you own and operate the one in St. Louis, correct? That's still under.
No, I'm just corporate.
So now you're running corporate. Okay. Well, you still have a great vantage point as someone running a company with really a national presence at this point on some level. If you could give one piece of advice to either people starting a franchise or a business from scratch on things, especially in this space of either home services or commercial cleaning area, what advice do you have people looking to scale? Some non-negotiables for you to grow.
I would say always don't be too close-minded. I know that there's some franchises that are just like, this is the way we're doing it, and that's the way we've always done it, and this is the way we're going to do it. I'm always open to hear, because like I said, I'm not out there doing the jobs anymore. So I like to hear from the franchises about what's working and not working, and maybe we should start adding this revenue stream, or maybe we should stop doing this. So I'm always open to change things up if things aren't working or something would work better. I'm trying to think what other piece of advice I would give them. Besides stick with it, there's a lot of times where you think it's not going to work. But, if you stick with it and stay consistent, it'll take some time, but it'll work.
Yeah. And the other thing, just, we talked to a lot of, franchisees, and the idea of absentee ownership is kind of laughable, correct?
Yeah, especially in this industry, it's real tricky because so much of what we do is developing relationships with people, especially with the, police give us a lot of referrals on the crime scene stuff. They're real skeptical, by their nature, by their job. So they really have to develop a relationship with you and trust you before they will start referring you. And, a lot of the work we do is in person. We have to go in person and talk to somebody. And so I usually tell people if they want some semi-absentee ownership, I tell them it's possible, but there has to be somebody doing it full time. Some people say, well, I'll have this job until it takes off. And I tell them it's not going to work if you're just banking on Google to make you $1 million in the first year. You have to have somebody out there actually building the business full time, more than full time, for at least the first couple of years before you kind of slow down a little bit.
That's right. You echo what many people say. First couple of years, and then eventually you can reach a point where you could step away, but that is definitely not day 1 or not even probably day 366. So
yeah.
Well, I appreciate all of this, Matt. Congrats on all your success. Can you tell our audience on where they can find you, especially people who may be looking in the franchising world as well? Yeah.
The website's tactfranchising.com, or you can find me at tact-franchise.com. TACT without the dots there. Just TACTfranchising.com or tact-franchise.com.
Matt, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate our audience's time, and we'll see everyone on the next episode. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great one.
You too.